Hi, this video is all about the changing role of the teacher. What do I mean by the changing role? Well, if you think back, say 20, 15 or even 10 years ago, probably most classrooms reflected the role of the teacher then, with rows of tables for the students, the teacher at the front and the board behind the teacher, really emphasizing this idea of the teacher being the person with all the knowledge, the teacher having all the answers. If you think about today, and even the videos that I'm talking in now, this series, I'm often talking about changing your layout in the classroom. And this really reflects the changing role of the teacher, which today is not so much about being the only person as a source of knowledge in the classroom, but more as a facilitator to allow the learners themselves to share their knowledge and find that knowledge themselves, of course often online. So why does this matter? Why is it in this series? Well, basically the internet and digital tools are what is driving this change. To give you an example, in the classroom, think about perhaps the use of workbooks, which maybe 10 or 15 years ago the teacher controlled completely. You probably remember you could even decide if you had the workbook with answers or without answers. You had complete control. If you think about today and actually doing exercises online, if learners do exercises online, they will get instant feedback. They can find out if the answers are right or wrong themselves. They don't necessarily need the teacher to give them the answers. So that's just an example of how the internet and digital tools are changing things in the classroom. And of course, outside the classroom, there are big changes as well in society in general and the kind of jobs that we're all doing. Now at this point, you might have some questions, and maybe the first one is, well, I don't see it happening in my school. Well, perhaps not right now, but things are changing. Governments are changing curriculums to reflect the kind of skills that learners will need in the future. And I think it's really important for us as teachers to go with that. So even if you don't see the change now, it will be coming. A second question which I've heard is teachers asking, will I lose my authority? Well, it's not really about authority. It is a big culture change, and of course we want the learners to have more autonomy, but essentially you are still directing the class and you are still setting the boundaries for behaviour in class. So you still have, in that sense, the authority as the teacher. So in this changing situation, what can you do? Well, I already mentioned one idea in the digital literacy video, and that is class rules. If you set class rules around the use of online materials or digital tools like mobile phones or tablets, if you set those rules early in the year and establish them clearly, that's going to make it a lot easier to work with all those tools, which will make your classroom a more flexible environment. And my second tip is actually exactly that, to be flexible. So as a teacher, be flexible in terms of planning your lessons. Don't just decide the whole lesson process yourself, but maybe sometimes let learners choose which kinds of activities they want to follow or which exercises they want to do. And you can actually give them a menu, something else I mentioned in another video in this series. Give them a menu of activities to try at the beginning of the lesson. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting you do this in every single lesson, but I think it's good to give learners again some autonomy in deciding or helping to decide what exactly they do in class. My third tip is something more traditional, something that you might well do already, and that is to move the tables around and create a different classroom layout. So typically you might have rows of tables. Maybe why not try the horseshoe, or try clusters or groups of tables. If you download the information sheet connected to this video, you can find out more about all of those layouts. Finally, when it comes to the changing role of the teacher and allowing the learners to have more of a say, I don't think there's any better way of doing that than letting the learners be models sometimes. What do I mean by that? Well, usually, and that's fine, the teacher is the model for new language in the class. But these days, I'm sure even you, in some of your lessons, you might have learners who perhaps have lived abroad, maybe in the UK, maybe America, maybe in other countries. Or maybe they're just exceptional learners of English. Well, why not give them a chance to model some new language? Or maybe if they encounter some new language, let them bring it into the classroom. Of course, with certain boundaries on what kind of language it is. Well, that's all for this video. I hope it's given you a little bit of an idea about what we mean when we talk about the changing role of the teacher. If you found some of those tips useful, then remember you can download the information sheet which contains more details on them. Thanks for watching.